Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After we run you through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. And we got a doozy of an episode for you to hear today, ladies and gentlemen. Good amount of news. Obviously, we're going to break down the game, which I'm super excited about because I think the Dolphins did some interesting stuff in this game to really help the offense. I'm excited to break that down for you later in the show. And obviously, we have a chance to go on the longest win streak since 2016. Hopefully, we break it, get to 7 as well. And Tua could be the first rookie starter since Big Ben Roethlisberger to go 4-0. He has the opportunity to do that, which is pretty awesome as well. It's just a really, really good time to be a Dolphins fan. Let's get into the news, ladies and gentlemen. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins promote wide receiver Antonio Callaway from the practice squad. So, the Dolphins promoted Antonio Callaway from the practice squad for the game against the Los Angeles Chargers. He was then demoted to the practice squad after the game. I think this is an interesting story for a lot of different reasons. And when you really... There's so many areas to break this down. I don't know if it's because he's not in football shape. Obviously, he couldn't practice with the team while he was on suspension. Or maybe he's just not well versed in the playbook enough. I'm not really sure. But Antonio Callaway is a very talented... It can be the talent. He's a very talented receiver. I think he could bring in... Like I've said this a million times, I think, on every episode. But he could bring an extra dimension to this offense that they just don't have. I think they're very samey in this offense. In terms of their receiving threat and their skill position threats. The only one that I'm excited about, and we'll talk about this later in the show, but Jakeem Grant's kind of bringing another element to this team since he's been getting more snaps on the outside since Preston Williams has been hurt. He brings a different, he's quicker out of his breaks. He's actually not a bad route runner as well as he's showing us. Every time he starts on the outside, it seems he has a better game receiving-wise. So I think Antonio Callaway could bring a better presence inside, and I'm excited to see if he does that. Obviously, the Dolphins put him back on the practice squad. We're definitely not going to see that against Denver. Hopefully, we see that against maybe the Jets or Bengals as he gets more time under his belt in the organization. I'm excited to see what happens. Obviously, he's going to be taking scout team reps or obviously getting some practice time in the practice squad. So it's going to be interesting to see at some point, hopefully, Antonio Callaway plays. He's a very talented player. And hopefully we'll get to see him. And I think, like I said, I think he brings a different dimension to the playbook and to the team. All right, let's move on to the next news story. Oh, man, there's a lot to talk about. We'll talk about this one next. So this next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins have released running back Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard's time in Miami has come to an end. The Dolphins have cut the running back. Head coach Brian Flores announced during his press conference. Brian Flores deemed it a, quote, mutual parting from both sides there. This is an interesting news story for a lot of different reasons. It never worked, and I think the main reason, and again, the Dolphins don't lose much. He signed a proof a deal, it didn't work out, obviously. I don't think they regret it because they didn't give up a lot for him. But the reason it didn't work is because of, to me, schematic fit. This Dolphins team, I think he could have brought another dimension to the offense, and it never really worked out because they're just not really good at it. I think, like I've said this a million times with Jordan Howard, he needs a lot of carries to be good. He needs at least 15 to 20 carries a game to be successful. If you look at his career, he's had his best seasons when his team hasn't had a quarterback and it's been a downhill running game because they've had to lean on the running game and he gets a lot of carries. He's a power back. He's very similar to LeGarrette Blount in that way. He needs a lot of carries a game to be successful. And he just wasn't going to get that in Miami. It's not a good scheme fit. Every time he came into the game, it really threw off the rhythm of the offense because you really had to switch what the Dolphins do well and really halt it to switch to what Jordan Howard does well, and everything had to kind of change for him to be successful, and it just never worked out. And obviously the Dolphins can't do that, and especially if you look at every time he came into the game, unless it was in the goal line, it was a negative play. It wasn't really ever that positive. And he's really not good in the spread stuff. He's not good in the shotgun stuff. He just is not a good fit for this team. I'm interested to see where he goes. I really hope he doesn't go to New England. I think New England's pretty happy with their running back core, though. They have a lot of depth there. But he would be a good fit for a Ravens or someone where he can rack up a bunch of carries a game. I don't think, again, like I said, it just never really fit what the Dolphins want to do on offense and what they're good at on offense. And it is what it is. Hopefully he doesn't come back to haunt us with it. AFC East opponent. Hopefully he moves on somewhere else. Maybe somewhere like the Giants or someone like that. But again, he's a guy that needs a lot of carries to be successful. Like I said, if you look at his career, that's when he's had the most success. It just never really worked out. It sucks that we could never find that dimension to the offense. It's kind of puzzling when you look at the offensive line. I don't know whether you chalk that up to the offensive line being as young as it is, or what, or maybe it's just too much of a drastic change for this offensive line, because they're two totally different styles of play. We talk about smash mouth downhill football, and then some of the spread finesse stuff that we're really good at. It just doesn't work well, and that's something New England's really good at, and hopefully we'll get good at, is being multiple and being able to do some smash mouth football stuff and get into the spread and have that success there. And this offense has just never really been able to find that rhythm. Hopefully, eventually they will. And we're going to talk about something that I think they do well in the run game later when we break down the game, which is really exciting. But again, just never really worked out for a lot of different reasons. So let's move on to the next news story. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins have extended defensive tackle Zach Sieler. This is a very exciting story. Again, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins have been arguably the best story, blah, blah, blah. I'm just trying to get you he signed through the 2023 season. On the year, Zach Sieler has had 26 tackles, 4 have been for a loss, and 1.5 sacks, and 8 quarterback hits. So, obviously, again, I don't know if I read it, but he was an undrafted, or a 7th round pick. I don't know. Let's see here. He was a 7th round pick with the Ravens, and then obviously the Dolphins picked him up in December of last year, and ever since then he's been amazing. I think he's the best penetrator in the run game at the defensive tackle position on this roster. He's an underrated pass rusher. He's a good athlete too. I think he shows that every single week. He had that really big hit on Caleb Ballage on that screen pass, and he made up a lot of ground to even make that hit. He's a good athlete, underrated pass rusher. I think, again, he's the best penetrator at the defensive tackle position on this team. And he made huge plays. Him and Jason Strowbridge really wreaked havoc in terms of getting penetration, getting tackles for loss that were huge in winning that game defensively against the Chargers. And I think the Dolphins have a lot of really good run defenders. I think Christian Wilkins and Raekwon Davis especially, you just don't move them up front, and that really allows the linebackers to move freely and make plays in the backfield. But in terms of penetration and getting off a block and hitting someone in the backfield, I think Zach Sieler and hopefully Jason Strowbridge, and he showed that in this game, can bring some of that. And Zach Sieler brings it every single week, but hopefully Strowbridge can bring even more of that. But again, like I said, Zach Sieler is the best on the team at it. And he's a very underrated pass rusher. And what a find by the Dolphins front office. And he's going to be a very good player for us for, again, at least the 2023 season. He's a very, very, very good rotational defensive tackle. And he's an all-around, not just a rotational defensive tackle, a good starter in the NFL. You don't really get many of those picking someone up off the street who was a 7th round pick from a different team. So he was a great find by the Dolphins. And even when the Dolphins got him last year, he made plays. He made splash plays. He's just been a really good scheme fit, and hopefully he continues to make plays for more years to come. This last news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins, who I can't remember his name right now, they lost the guard to the Jets from the Minnesota Vikings. Who cares? Nobody cares. The reason they couldn't pick him up on waiver wires is because the Jets had the worst record out of all the teams that wanted him. Blah 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 blah. Doesn't matter. He would have been depth anyway, and because first of all, I think this young interior needs, especially some of these young offensive linemen, need reps, and they're just getting better every single week. So I think it really. It would have been for depth, if anything. So that's all the news you need to know about. I think we covered it all. A lot of interesting stuff in there with the Callaway stuff, the Jordan Howard stuff. Very excited to see what Zach Sieler continues to do. So let's get into the game, which I'm super excited to talk about because I think there's a lot of interesting things that happened in this game, and especially offensively, that gets me very, very excited. But I think we right there. I don't know how bad. But I think we should start with the defense, which continues to be dominant. But before we get into the defense, I want to bring something up. And I don't understand what's going on with this. It's kind of confusing to me. And it's like, I think the Dolphins have either the most cynical fans in the world or people just want to be negative for some reason. But I want to bring up this fact that, special teams, and you've heard some analysts say this, special teams is one of the biggest reasons, if not it's the biggest reason the Dolphins got control of this game and won this game. That is false and stupid, in my opinion. First of all, yes, we got a block punt and we scored on the 1 yard line. That did happen. But in terms of and I don't want to say it's not one of the reasons we won the game. Of course it is one of the reasons. I mean, we missed, obviously you had the offsides that which, led to the touchdown. We had the block punt in this game. And our defense gave us great field position, and Jakeem Grant capitalized on some of those punt returns. I'm not saying it was a reason, but to say is the biggest. First of all, I think we dominated in all three phases of this game. If it wasn't for a Ted Karras fumble, we would have been up either 17-0 or 21-0, which, by the way, led to Chargers points on that. So to me, I think it's a little dumb to look at this game and say that the Dolphins weren't the better team. I mean, they were up 29-14 with 3 minutes left to go. I really don't think this game was ever that close, is my point. I'm not saying that the special teams... I think it's a little I thought this was a dominant win by the Dolphins, in my opinion. I know they gave up the late touchdown to make it 21-29 to make it look a little bit more close, and obviously it was 2014 late in that fourth quarter where the Dolphins kind of pulled away. But I thought the Dolphins could and should have dominated this game even more because I think from start to finish they were the better team. When you go back and watch this game, and when you're watching the game, maybe not necessarily live because some of that stuff did get a little bit closer in the fourth quarter. But in terms of who's the better team, I don't know why I'm bringing this up right now. But I just saw some stuff on the Dolphins aren't that much more talented or less talented than the Chargers. Well, if that's true, fine. If that's what you want to think. But like I said, I felt like I just wanted to get that off my chest. I felt like we dominated from the first to the fourth quarter in all three phases of the game. And I think we left some things out there offensively, whether it was penalties, because we had a lot of pre-snap penalties in this game, or the turnover that really kind of stunted the offense a little bit. They scored 29, and it wasn't, obviously, it was assisted by good defense and good special teams, but I felt like the offense played well overall, and I thought the Dolphins were dominant in pretty much all three phases of this game, if it wasn't for some mental errors. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. I just thought, all right, well, why is this even being said? Because I just thought, this is a dumb thing to bring up. Can we just enjoy our 5-game win streak without some of these stupid criticisms of this team? This offense is just fine, trust me. People are acting like this thing is the most... It's like the Chicago Bears or something like that. It's ridiculous. So let's get into the defensive side of the football. First, because it continues to be dominant. And I hope that rant made sense in any way. I feel like I was just ranting a rant. I had to get that off my chest, though. So let's get into the defensive side of the football. So I think what I want to start with before we break down what the Dolphins did really well to win this game, I want to bring up the fact that the Chargers really surprised me in this game. Anthony Lynn continues to be one of the worst coaches in the NFL. He gets a lot of praise for his leadership, but his teams continually do stupid things every single Sunday. I think they've given up 3 17-point leads. That's either Justin Herbert's fault or the coaching staff's fault. And they're really not a coaching staff that I look at like, okay, these are one of the best in the NFL. They kind of just do the same thing every single week. They don't really adjust to their opponent that well. They're famous for the Gus Bradley Seattle scheme, which they run every single week. They never change their defensive scheme and strategy. And offensively, they're pretty much, okay, we throw the ball over the yard type of an offense. I think they average 300. They average a ton. I think Herbert is definitely top 3 in passing yards each and every single game. Their running numbers aren't all that great. So going into this game, I'm like, okay, that plays into the Dolphins' hands really well, offensively and defensively. And hats off to the Chargers. They really kept Herbert away from that Aniba front. They didn't want him to play into the blitz. They didn't want him to pass 30, 40, 50,000 times in this game. He obviously, towards the end there, when the game started getting, kind of pulling away from the Chargers, they ended up having to get in the shotgun and do some of that stuff, and obviously it wasn't very, it led to a turnover in this game. So I was surprised at the Chargers game plan. I thought it was a good game plan, especially early on in that game. It was a lot of under center stuff. They had a nifty little screen game in that empty formation to kind of counter it. They couldn't run it a lot of times because the Dolphins ended up adjusting to it, but they had a good game plan against this defense, and I thought it was kind of frustrating as a fan watching it because I really thought that they were going to keep doing the things that they've been doing all year, and Anthony Lynn actually had, hats off to him, a very good game plan. Like I said, especially in that first half, they really kept Justin Herbert away from that front, whether it was under center stuff, passing for under center, play action, running the football, doing everything they could to keep him away from that front. Because when he did have to face the front, I think if you think about some of the bigger plays in this game, there was a third down that he sailed one on an out route. The 4th and 2 was an inaccurate pass. Obviously, the interception, I thought we confused him a little bit with the front. He ends up throwing an interception to Xavier Howard. So, again, you really have to game plan around, and I think it's the ultimate respect to this defense and Brian Flores, that you really have to game plan for this defense. And this is coming from a coaching staff that really doesn't do that, but they knew they couldn't do some of that stuff against this defense, or it was going to be a long day for them. And you saw that in the Chargers game plan. I thought the Dolphins did a great job of kind of countering what they wanted to do. And it took us, especially, it kind of took us a little bit. We started off hot, but that second drive, especially after that fumble, they were kind of getting a little bit of stuff going, and it kind of seemed like they were running the ball well when they really didn't. Watching the game, and then you actually look at the stats, they were, as a team, I believe, under 100 yards rushing. Kalen Ballage finished with 18 carries for 68 yards on a 3-yard average a carry, which it seemed a lot more than that when it really wasn't. 18 carries for 68 yards, I'll take that any day of the week. Joshua Kelly finished with 7 carries for 21 yards, and Justin Herbert had 4 carries for 10 yards, which is really impressive. The fact that he attempted to run that many times and only got 10 yards out of it. Obviously, had to sneak for the touchdown on the goal line. But for the most part, this Dolphins defense was dominant the entire game. I think there's a little bit of a misconception that this defense cannot stop the run. And I know it's not one of the better run defenses in the NFL, but when it has to stop the run, it stops the run. If you look at some of those key drives in each and every single game, and I think those numbers are skewed a little bit. When you look at the Dolphins' opponents this season, they're the best run schemes in the National Football League. When you think about the Rams and Sean McVay's run offense, you think about Kyle Shanahan and his run offense, and you think about New England and what they're doing with that run offense. All 3 of those teams are the best running teams outside of the Ravens in the National Football League. So I think those numbers are skewed a little bit, and I do think this Dolphins defense can stop the run when they want to, and when they need to, they can stop the run, in my opinion. And I think that shows with the amount of times that they really try to establish the run game. And it was kind of inconsistent for this Chargers team. And obviously, the Dolphins ended up getting the win. But again, I think the thing that surprised me the most about the defensive side of the ball was the Chargers game plan. Like I said, I thought they did a good job of keeping Herbert from that front as much as they could. And I think that's a great compliment to this defense. I can't remember the last time I could say that about a Dolphins team, where another team had to, okay, we can't play this way against this team because of how dominant that side of the ball is for that team. Even the 2016 team had a good running game, but it wasn't as dominant as what you see from this defense, where teams actually have to worry about it and scheme around it, like other teams do against this defense, because they're starting to get that respect and recognition off of this 5-game win streak, where teams really have to try to find ways around it. And I thought that was the thing that I noticed the most in this game. Defensively, overall, though, when you think about some of the positives, I think Zach Sieler and again Strobridge really popped in this game. They had 2 huge tackle for losses in this game that really kind of stunted what the Chargers wanted to do, which was run the football. Even when Caleb Ballard was just kind of going a little bit, I thought that The Dolphins did a good job. And again, if you're like, okay, who would you rather go off, Justin Herbert or Kalen Ballage? Every single time you would pick Kalen Ballage. So, and if you look at what the Dolphins did in their secondary, they completely nullified Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry and Mike Williams. Mike Williams, most of his yards came in garbage time. Hunter Henry only had 30 yards on 4 receptions. He had that one touchdown in the end zone, but that was very difficult to stop. It was basically on the 4-yard line, maybe, or the 3-yard line, or maybe the 5-yard line. And they completely took Keenan Allen out of the game. He had the 3 receptions, and he ended up scoring a touchdown in garbage time as well. So the Dolphins' defense continues to be dominant, and one of the funnest things to watch as a fan of this team. It's so entertaining to watch this defense every single week. It's just a fun scheme to watch. It's a great NFL scheme, especially what teams like to do now, where it's very pass-happy. It counters that very hard. And I think this defense, to me, is an all-around good defense. I think they've proved that over this 5-game win streak in a lot of different areas. And I think it is kind of a misconception that this defense cannot stop the run. And like I said, they played 3 of the best running teams in the National Football League, and they did pretty good against those teams. And I'm not really worried about that side of the football at all when it comes to this defense. I think this defense is an all-around good defense, and it's even encouraging to see Strobridge play like that against the run and really pop like that against the run. And it's a great sign for this team. And shout out to this entire secondary for how good they are. Bobby McCain's having the best year of his career. Eric Rowe is a dominant safety. And he's basically, like Omar Kelly deems him, the tight end eraser. He really is. Byron Jones is great. Xavier Howard is great. This linebacker core is amazing to watch. Super versatile. Can do a lot of different things from that area of the field. This defensive line is fun to watch with Ogba, Shaq Lawson, Zach Sieler, who seems to make 4 splash plays a game. And it's just this defense, and Brandon Jones, who's super underrated. This defense is so fun to watch, and it's just a breath of fresh air, especially after some of those Matt Burke defenses that we had to go through in the past. It's amazing, and it really is dominant, and I don't think it gets enough credit because I think it really is one of the 5 best defenses in the National Football League, especially against the pass, and has one of the best. Has one of the sack leaders in the National Football League too, and one of the best back ends in the National Football League. Definitely the best corner duo in the National Football League, in my opinion. And I've made the argument of why I think that. I think what they do for this scheme and what they allow this scheme to do, no other secondary member really does that, in my opinion, at least from a duo's perspective, and how much weight that they're carrying every single game, I think is more than any other secondary duo. I'm out of breath there. Sorry, guys. Let's get into the offensive side of the football. There's a lot to break down. And obviously, shout out to Josh Boyer, too. I don't think I ever really bring him up, but he's done a great job of calling the games as well. So let's get into the offensive side of the football. And there was a lot to be happy about in this game. Not to mention the fact that Tua is playing very well. If you look at we'll go through the final stat line. Tua finished 16 for 25, 169 yards and 2 tubs. He made a lot of nice plays in this game. Ahmed, I think is how you say his name. He finished with 21 carries for 85 yards. Had a really nice game. Could have had 100 yards, I feel like. He was kind of getting beat up in this game, so if you go back and watch it especially, it's like, okay, I understand why Brian Flores took him out. Especially down the stretch of that game. He finished with that 1 touchdown. He looks amazing. Patrick Laird came in and made a couple plays. Malcolm Perry had he had that huge splash play on that Wildcat play that he kind of cut back and gained 6 yards on that play. Jakeem Grant was our leading receiver on the day, and I really don't know where to start with this. First of all, let's start here. Chan Gailey, I know I criticized him hard against the Rams game, and I still stand by the fact that was way too conservative. And I know people bring up the fact, well, you didn't have to do much. Well, when we were down 0-7, the game plan was still the same when we were up all those points. And maybe he would have opened it up more in that game as the game went along. I don't know. But the point is, I don't even know why I brought that game up. I don't care. I don't care about that game. Chan Gailey has been amazing. He's been really good. He's been really good as a play caller. And it's, again, a breath of fresh air from some of the other stuff that we've dealt with in the past with Mike Sherman, Bill Lazor, Zach Taylor, and now to get to Chan Gailey and Adam Gase, obviously, and to get to Chan Gailey and just what he's done. And I can name a couple more. I mean, Donald Loggins, Clyde Christensen at one point. to get all the way from that trash to here, it feels good. It feels really, really, really good. So shout out to Chan Gailey. He's amazing. So with that out of the way, I really like what Shane did in this game from the run. I think the shotgun run stuff, and a lot of this stuff is from Alabama, like with the motions in the backfield, and I think that really helps out the run game because it puts a lot of stress on your defense, and you really can't sit in this. Okay, we're gonna load the box. You saw that in the Cardinals game where they did that a lot, especially when we were under center. And in the Rams game, they load the box a lot in those games. And I love Chain's counter to that. And I think we could really, to be honest with you, who cares about under center? Let's just stay in the shotgun and run the football because I think that's where we're going to have our most success because you can't load the box. Between the RPOs and how we spread you out and all the motions in the backfield with Jakeem Grant, who's a weapon. Like, you can't really do that against that formation. And I think it really opens up running lanes for us. And I thought that was something interesting. And I think that's when really we had our best success was in the shotgun when we ran the football, and I really like that. And again, a lot of that stuff is from Alabama. Who cares about and you really notice, especially from Tua's first game to, if you look at the evolution of the offense till now against the Chargers, you didn't really see any pistol. You really didn't see that much under center stuff. And of all the really big runs, it was in the shotgun. That's when we had our most success. I think a great point and a great sequence of events is when we ended up having to settle for the field goal to go up 29-14, I believe, at the time. If you look at those 3 plays, they were pretty much, not even pretty much, they were all under center, loss on the runs. If Chain kept doing that shotgun stuff where he had all the motions, give the defense all, different looks, which you can come in the backfield, maybe a 2-back set, stuff like that. That stuff, I think, is where you're going to see the most success for this team running the football. And I think they can have a consistent, sustained running game from that set. Again, I think you can't load the box, because of the pressure that would be put on you with all the speed on the field at the time. And you give them different looks with all the motions, not to mention the fact that Tua can run the bootlegs off of that stuff with the play action. You can, Tua can keep it, pull it, and he can have some play actions from those formations. There's just so many possibilities from that formation that it helps out the running game a lot. And I think hopefully we can continue to do that. And again, I think it's a great testament to Chain just continuing to find stuff that works, because I think this offense ran completely different than from now than obviously when Tua took over against the Rams. It's just a completely different offense, and I love some of the stuff that he's doing from that perspective. And again, everybody's been saying, okay, this team needs a run game. I think they found it in this game. And I think it can just continue, and hopefully they can continue the consistency of keeping that type from that formation and continue to run some of that stuff to get better at it and really present problems from other defenses. And again, like I said, I think that's the answer to a consistent run game is those sets, and hopefully they continue to do it. And I think they can, again, really get Jakeem Grant involved in the offense in more than one way. And again, I think it stresses out a defense, especially when he comes in motion. And again, like I said, he can come in motion. He can run to the flat on a play action. There's just so many things you can do from that shotgun set. And again, I think it just really helps out the run game with all the misdirection. So I also want to bring up another fact, and we kind of alluded to earlier, is Jakeem Grant in this game. He plays better when he's on the outside. It's kind of frustrating. And, Omar brought up the fact, well, he doesn't get a lot of jams there. Maybe that's what it is. Even in the slot, though, I've never really seen Jakeem Grant get pressed all that often. But I don't know what it is. If you look at Jakeem's biggest games, from a receiving perspective, I think of the Monday night game against the Patriots. Again, those were in our retro jerseys. When he had that deep touchdown from Jay Cutler. All of his big games from a receiving standpoint are all when he's on the outside. So, and again, also since Tua's been in the lineup, he's looked better. It seems those two have good chemistry with each other, even on some of those out routes. And I think he can be even more successful from the outside because Tua is so accurate that his size doesn't really factor in there. Like some of those out routes that he ran that Tua put on the money, like only Tua is getting that, really is going to be able to complete some of those passes. So I think Jakeem Grant's going to be a bigger part of this offense, and we need him to be because he is different than Preston Williams and Devontae Parker. He does bring a different element to the table, and that's something that I've been pounding the table for. He is quicker coming in and out of his breaks. He is faster. So I think he brings a different element to this offense, which it was desperately needing, even though it is still on the outside, and nobody really has commanded the inside of the field yet. I still think that's a good. And hopefully when Preston Williams comes back, they just put him inside. Just put Preston Williams inside, keep Devontae Parker on the outside, and keep Jakeem Grant on the outside. I think that's their best lineup there, in my opinion. Hopefully they continue to do some of that stuff. I thought Jakeem Grant played really well, and again, I think you can continue to see him to grow in this offense and be more of a player in this offense because of it. He clearly is more comfortable on the outside, and I think you add on the fact that Tua has good chemistry with him, and he's more accurate with some of those outside out routes and stuff of that nature. Jakeem Grant could have a really, really, really good second half of this season, and really make some splash plays for us. So those are the things that I really noticed from this offense. In terms of like I said, the play calling was great, the execution was great, and another thing I want to bring up with Chan Gailey, they were talking about, the red zone offense for this team has been great since Tua took over. It's not just Tua, and it's not, people bring up, that's where quarterbacks make a name for themselves in the red zone and third down. Yes, that is true. But if you want to have a really, really good red zone offense, like the New England Patriots have had, like the Rams have had over the years, like Kyle Shanahan had last year, and the Saints have had since Sean Payton has been there, you have to have a good play caller. It's not just the quarterback. You have to be creative in the red zone to score consistently in the red zone, and that is something that Chan Gailey has done since he got... the formation, we had Solomon Kinley at fullback, and really were able to really run over the Chargers, especially with Linval Joseph, and they have not a bad run defense. They have some good linebackers there as well, Denzel Perryman and Kenneth Murray, and we really had a lot of success, especially in the red zone with that goal line package. And he had a lot of awesome plays off of it. It wasn't just the run. He had the play action pass the Durham Smythe. Like, he's so creative, and that's a big reason why we've had such great red zone success. And Tua has been obviously great in the red zone as well with some of those anticipatory throws. But Chan Gailey has done a great job as a play caller. And that's again, a big reason why we've been so successful in the red zone is because of his creativity and his ability to get this team ready every single week and give the defense different looks every single game. And it's great. It's really, really, really good. And I don't think we've touched on it enough, but Ahmed was great. He looks, and I think something that he brings that Myles Gaskin doesn't bring is he has juice. Like, this dude is athletic. He's fast. I think he's probably the fastest running back that we have on the team. I'm excited to see what DeAndre Washington does in the spread system as a receiving back. I don't think he's going to be that great of a threat in terms of a runner. And again, I'm super excited to see Jakeem Grant continue to grow in this offense because I think he's found his role in this offense where he can be consistently good, not just a one-hit wonder every single year from a receiving standpoint. So I'm very excited about that. Hopefully that continues to happen, not to mention the fact that Tua is just dealing right now. He's been very good for us, and I'm just very excited as a fan. And that pretty much covers it. I don't think if there's anything else that I'm really missing in terms of a shortcoming of this team. The blitz pickups were way better this week. That's something that obviously the Dolphins got better at this week. Even though the Chargers aren't that aggressive as a defense, they did it wasn't as much as the Cardinals. And the Cardinals are one of the best blitzing teams in the NFL, so to give them credit, I will give them credit for that. But that's something that the team struggled with last week that they didn't struggle with this week. Even when the Chargers did blitz, they did a good job of picking it up. So that was cool that got corrected. There was really no negatives to the offense. I guess the pre-snap penalties and some of that stuff needs to stop. I don't know why that has come up since Tua became the starter. But that's about it. And negatives on defense, I don't have any. The defense, if there was any big plays that this team gave up, it was either Keenan Allen is a really good receiver or they had a little bit of like, okay, this is a nice counter to what we're trying to do defensively. And I thought we got that corrected during the game. And it really didn't consistently hurt us. So, yeah. I don't. This is the first time in a long time from a breaking down perspective that I have not had to say anything negative about this team, which feels really nice. It feels really, really, really nice. This team's rolling right now. So let's get into the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. I'm sure you guys have hopefully we have a ton of questions to answer. We have 44 questions. The questions keep coming and they keep being high figures, which is great. So let's get into this first question. This is my favorite part of the show. Love this part of the show. Hold on. That and breaking down the games. I love that part. This next question comes from Brandon. He says, how long till we get Preston back? It looks like Tua misses his big target out there at times on Sunday. I I believe he's missing 3 weeks. Could be longer than that, if I'm not mistaken. He was put on IR, so he has to miss a minimum of 3 weeks. And it's not 8 weeks like it usually is because of the COVID situation. Which I feel like they should switch that rule now. Even when COVID hopefully gets killed, all that stuff. And hopefully, obviously, hopefully it's not an issue going down the line. But I hope they keep that rule. I like that rule, that it's only 3 weeks instead of 8. So I think a minimum of 3. Hopefully he comes back even sooner. Well, when the 3 weeks is up, hopefully he comes back then. Hopefully it's not a prolonged thing. I believe that is the situation. If I am wrong, someone in the comment section below will surely say that I am. This next question comes from Beef. He says, excuse me, I'm sorry, this thing's in my way. He says, do you think Tua should never try to tackle again like he did on Vigil, recovering the fumble in the game? First of all, that showed a lot of speed from Tua that I didn't know he had. Not that I didn't know he was fast, but I was like, that was a little bit of a burst there that I didn't think he could hit. Yeah, I mean, just Tua being Tua, really, and hustling. I don't think that's a play that you really are going to get injured on a lot. In my opinion, I think you're okay. Unless someone pancakes you, then that could become a problem. But the only time I've ever really seen that happen is when Clay Matthews did it to Russell Wilson in the NFC Championship game. That's the only time I've ever seen. Usually when a quarterback tries to block and stuff, for some reason, and thank God it's this way now, the defenders kind of show respect to them in an odd way. I don't know why. It didn't used to be like that, that's for sure. This next question comes from SM. He says, Skaggs, all this year, everyone has been looking for the Dolphins' feature back. Sorry, I had to click this thing. But other than Corey Dillon, I can't remember New England having a feature running back. Do you think Miami will continue to have a running back rotation in the future instead of a primary starting running back to keep everyone hungry and to keep the salary cap number low at that position? It's not just that. I think what this offense wants to be and what Brian Flores wants this offense to be and why the New England Patriots had so many running backs like that is because they could be multiple. Like I said, if you want to put LeGarrette Blount in the game, it's a completely different offense than when James White is in the game or Danny Woodhead is in the game. It's a spread, pass it all over the field type of offense. But when Blunt's in the game, or when, who's another great power back, even before Blunt that they had? I'm trying to think. There is one right now, and I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name right now. It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, it's not Jarvis Green-Ellis, is it? It's not. No. That's a different running back. Or is it? It's not. Anyway, the point is that that's the reason they have all of those running backs, is to be multiple. And I think that's what Brian is trying to do here. It just didn't work out this year. And I like that mentality, and I think it's a very successful one. And hopefully down the line the Dolphins can continue to do that. But I would like a Corey Dillon type of a guy for this, especially if it continues to be more of shotgun heavy stuff. I think the Dolphins kind of need that. And Ahmed, hopefully I'm saying his name right. I like what he brings to the table because of his athleticism. I think he's a home run hitter type of running back. He's very, very fast. So, and he really, really pops. So the question is, yes, I think the Dolphins can do that, and I think that's probably what their mentality will be going on in the future, and especially if they ever kind of figure out this kind of dual identity as an offense that New England kind of had. And something else I want to bring up before we move on to the next question that you kind of reminded me, SM, in your question, with the whole New England comparison. This team is a lot like New England, not only defensively, but the way that they beat teams every single week. They kind of the way that they outsmart teams every single week, and special teams is always kind of a 10 out of 10, and that's something that it does kind of remind you of that. And I know Dolphins fans don't necessarily want to hear that, but it is a good thing that they do play. There's a lot of similarities there in a lot of different areas. Just the consistency, the preparation, the intelligence. The preparation is the thing that is so similar. Like, this team is prepared every single week, mentally, and has a great plan every single week, and that's something that New England, hangs their hat on. So shout out to Brian Flores. He's the GOAT, man. I love Brian Flores. I don't mean that literally, obviously, but I love Brian Flores to death. So hopefully we answered your question, SM. So we'll answer another one right here. This next question comes from SM. He says, the Dolphins' next 3 games are winnable, according to the talking heads. Do you see a trap game in the future? I know that they play the Broncos, Jets, and Bengals next. No. Not the way this team plays. There is no such thing as a trap game with this team. Because this team, I think a great example of that is when, if you saw the mic'd up against the Chargers with Jerome Baker, he looks over to Callaway and he says, "What's our record?" And he goes 6-3. And I think that's a great kind of example of where this team is. It's just like, this is a week to week basis thing, and we want to beat the other team. We don't walk sleep like they're not the Buccaneers. We should win this game. When they go into a game every single week, they want to beat the other team. Like that's why you see some of these blowouts. Is like this team comes in prepared, hungry. And ready to go, and I don't think I see that happening for this team for sure. Not with Brian Flores as the head coach. This next question comes from Wayne. He says, "Are you pleased with how Gailey has coordinated the offense around Tua's skill set?" Absolutely. Especially, I think the best example of it is this Chargers game. And I think he found something in this game, like I said, and we broke down earlier, to really be consistently good in the run game. But yeah, to answer your question, Wayne, he does a great job with this team and this offense, especially in the red zone. This next question comes from SM. He says, "Mr. Skaggs, do you watch the Spring League? Lots of hungry players. Spring League in terms of college football? No, I don't watch that." This next question comes from Brandon. He says, "Not to be overconfident, but we can run into the Chiefs as a 9-3 team if everything goes well." Again, this question comes from Brandon. I don't know if I said that. He says, "Well, how do you think we will game plan for such a dynamic offense playing such weak ones?" Okay, so you're talking about how would we game plan for the Chiefs? We would do a lot of the same things we're doing in terms of the amoeba front. I think we will do a lot of what New England did against the Chiefs, where it was a lot of man-to-man. We dropped some of our outside linebackers deep into those crosses, to kind of get in the way of those deep crossers. A lot of blitzing. Same thing that really New England does to them. Shade over to Tyreek's side, all that kind of stuff. That's going to be a fun game to watch. And if we are 9-3, obviously, that would be amazing at that time. But I don't want to look. I guess I'm not a part of the team, so it doesn't really matter. But looking that far ahead against the Chiefs in that matchup, it'll be a fun one. This Dolphins team is very good against the pass, is very aggressive. And the thing that this team that I love about it is if you pass into it that many times, you're probably going to turn the football over because of how well this defensive line gets the ball out from the quarterback, how athletic it is, how well the secondary is, how well the back end is, and how opportunistic players like Xavier Howard are, who will. I feel like if you pass that many times into this defense, you're gonna turn the ball over. Like, it's just too difficult from a quarterback, and the pressure it puts on your offensive line and your quarterback from a snap to snap basis if you're a pass heavy team is just too much. I don't care who you are. But if anybody were to not necessarily crack the code, but overcome it at that level where you if you're in a scenario where you have to pass that much into it, the only one who I could think of who could just overcome it like that would be, and Kyler Murray was able to do it in a different way because he's so athletic. But from everyone else who isn't a freak athlete like Kyler Murray, like I said, just puts so much pressure on you. But Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. He is the human cheat code. So again, it's just a that is a fascinating matchup that I'm excited to watch for sure. This next question goes to JagPack18. He says, "Love how this team is playing, but can they beat the Bills in Buffalo in January for the division if it comes to that?" Josh Allen owns the Dolphins. Yeah, the Dolphins have only beat Josh Allen once, which is crazy, and that was a close game to say the least. Yeah, I think I'm excited to see this team again. You got to remember, Noah Benogany was starting that game, so this defense is completely different with Byron Jones. Completely different in the way it's called, all that. Plus, I think it's going to be hard to beat a Brian Flores team twice, in my opinion. It's going to be an interesting matchup. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just thinking about it. For a lot of different reasons. I think they're not a good running team, and if they do have to pass into that front a lot, like I said, it favors us. And Josh Allen has been known to throw a pick or two. And you have to be on your A game the entire game with us. We're going to test you mentally and physically the entire game from a defensive perspective. So I like our matchup there. I think and I liked it in the beginning of the year, like before we played them. It just Igbenogany just played. He could not have played worse. And we didn't even see, if you remember, we didn't even see that coming because week 1 they didn't pass. New England didn't pass. And it wasn't until week 2 where we're like, oh, well, this is going to be an issue with Igbenogany. So we didn't even really know how good Igbenogany was going to do until that game, and we found out real quick that he's just not ready for it. So this next question comes from Beef. He says, "Hey Skaggs, how about them Dolphins? How about them Dolphins?" It feels nice, feels real good. He says, "This game easily could have been 21. Yeah, easily. Like, see, Beef understands. He understands where I'm coming from. He says this game easily could have been 21-0 if it wasn't for a bad snap. Why does nobody bring that up? In my opinion, we were dominant in all 3 phases. Okay, and that has not been said about this game. So I just want to say it here, as a person who has watched this game multiple times now, and yeah, to me, this team should have been dominant on 3 phases if it wasn't for dumb penalties and the stupid fumbled snap by Ted. And at least Beef feels me on this one. He says, if it hadn't been for a bad snap, doesn't matter whose fault it is because we definitely have to work on getting better. But the fumbles made me superstitious. Does that say superstitious? Yeah. Why did it make you superstitious? He says, my question is, as a Dolphins fan, do you think we should try not to get too cocky and be more humble and grateful that this team is doing well, and now having a chance to win the division after the Bills lost to the Cardinals going into their bye week? In shocking fashion, I apologize. This was long-winded. No, it was perfect. Yeah, I think Dolphins fans, especially some of the stuff that I've seen, whether it's on the team stream or other places, like a lot of these people gotta calm down, man. You gotta stop and smell the roses. This team is really good, in so many different ways. Not to mention the fact that they have a really good quarterback, in my opinion, and I think he's shown that. And Brian Flores is a top 5 head coach in the NFL, so. I think again, it's you have to stop and smell the roses. This team is on a 5-game win streak, going in for 6, and I think you just have to enjoy the moment, man. You got to understand where we're coming off of, and some of the darkest years in Dolphins franchise history, and the losses might not say it, but from where the organization was, the disaster that the organization and front office was, the disaster that this team was every single week. Just be grateful. I would say about this whole situation, because I know we have a lot of season left to go, but this team is so fun to watch. Like, it's not that this team is just winning; it's winning in such a good fashion and just fun fashion that I have not seen in a long time. I never saw it the last 10 years of Dolphins football at any point. Even in the 2016 team, a lot of those games were close, and there was a lot to not like about that team. But this team is different. It's just a joy to watch every single week. So, and again, this goes back to this where he said, Dolphins fans, do you think we should try not to get so cocky and more humble and grateful? Yes, I agree. I think the Dolphins should be more grateful, for sure. Fans should be more grateful. And just stop and enjoy it, dude. This next question comes from Beef. He says, hey, Skaggs, what's your opinion on the contract extension of Zach Sieler? I think it's amazing. Zach Sieler is great. This next question comes from Ethan. He says, hey, Skaggs, who would you say is the most valuable player in the secondary? Ooh, that's a good question. Who is the most valuable player in the secondary? It's a tie, man. Because if the Dolphins lose X, if the Dolphins lose Eric Rowe, if the Dolphins lose Byron Jones, maybe if they don't lose Eric Rowe, I like Brandon Jones and Fedulum. He's pretty good too. I think it's a tie. I think it's a 3-way tie between those 3. They're so good that if any one of them, and I think the safety, like I said, Eric Rowe would be the one that I would be least concerned about. But definitely the 2 corners for sure. I think they're so valuable to what we want to do defensively. And now you really understand why the Dolphins went out and got a lot of these corners, because of how you just look at the defense. I mean, if one guy goes down, they need someone to come in and really fill those shoes. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention Nick Needham, who had a great game, too, against the Chargers. So yeah, if to answer your question, Ethan, I think it would be a three-way tie between those three. It's just hard to pick one out of those three, but that's a very good question. So this question comes from Vegas. He says Tua pretty much said the NFL games seem easy, alluding to the fact that Flores' practices present more of a challenge than what he's facing on game day. Do you think Brian Flores is playing a larger role into his development than we realize? Yes, because I wouldn't want to have to go against that front every single week in practice. It's way more complicated and complex than anything he's like, especially against the Chargers where it's cover 3 every play. Like that's way easier to deal with than what we throw at you as from a pass defensive standpoint. Like it's completely different. So yeah, it's again, it's a lot to deal for any quarterback, not to mention a rookie quarterback. And that game on Sunday, if they were like Herbert, go out there and try to win the game for us, we would have won by like 40 points. Like it is such a hard defense to go against from a mental standpoint. Not only on your offensive line, you have to literally be right almost every single time, or a disaster can happen, as we've seen multiple times this year from a defensive perspective. So yes, it's a huge role into his development. And Brian, he said many times that he's, they've watched film together a lot, all that stuff. So yeah, Brian is very, and he's very open and honest too, where he can be critical of his team, and they're accepting of it because they see that you take in his criticism, you get better, and I think he's proved that. So yeah, I think Brian Flores is in a lot of different ways very crucial to his development. This next question comes from SM. He says, why haven't Callaway or Bowden seen playing time? I think Bowden was out last week on COVID-19 list, if I'm not mistaken. He got activated this week. Callaway, I just don't think he's ready yet. And we really don't have an answer for that yet. This next question comes from Tony. He says, I thought the play calling was slow and conservative at times, but overall it was a pretty good game plan. What are your thoughts? Yeah, there were some calls that I'm like, maybe the RPO on third down wasn't the greatest call. I don't know. I kind of disagree with the slow part. I kind of disagree with that in a way. I don't think it was conservative. I liked the game plan. I thought it was a really good one. I don't know if it was slow or conservative. There were certain calls that maybe I was like, all right, maybe. But that's normal in an NFL game. Not every call is going to work. I kind of disagree with that a little bit, but I kind of agree at the same. I don't know. I thought it really Changele did a great job. I have no criticisms of it. This next question comes from Dancing Cow. He says, I don't know his name, but 26 is 26 going to be our future running back, or is he going to be a Caleb Ballage, Isaiah Ford, or Tannehill? I don't know if he'll. I don't know. We'll see where things go. But I like what I've seen so far. Let's just put it that way. I don't know. I can't listen. I don't have a crystal ball. It's been 2 games. I've liked it. We'll see where it goes. I think it's a wait and see to answer your question, Dancing Cow. This next question comes from Jay. He says, our red zone offense has been the best it's ever been, right? You agree? We have the defense that they say that wins championships as well. Yeah, well, yes, the red zone offense has been amazing. I think we're averaging 30 points a game since Tua has taken the helm, which is pretty awesome. And again, it's not just him, but it's still 30 points a game, which is pretty impressive. And again, I want to also point this out. He won that Cardinals game. People keep bringing up, we haven't had to see him really do much. It's like, dude, if it wasn't for Tua making that 3rd and 9 throw backed up in his own end zone and scrambling a couple of times, we wouldn't have won that game. That throw to Mike Gesicki on the corner out was amazing as well. Tua was a huge part of the reason we won that Cardinals game. Anyway, all right, I just wanted to say that too. But yes, the red zone offense is great, and yes, the defense is definitely good enough to win a championship for sure. Don't let this defense get any better, by the way. If this defense gets in, let's say name any superstar in the league, you add another guy to that defense, it's going to be all ridiculously good. It's going to be out of this world good. This defense is already great, and like I said, if you add anything else to it, it's going to be broken. How good it is. This next question comes from Take Me Out. He says 1.5 games out of first. Thank you, Kyler. Yes, thank you, Kyler, with the Hail Murray. Thank you. As soon as the Dolphins game ended, I turned that game on and was so upset when Stephon Diggs got that touch on it on Patrick Peterson, and then obviously with the Hail Murray. Which, by the way, Cliff Kingsbury did a great job of managing that last drive. I thought they were lucky because they had 3 timeouts, but you usually don't see it managed that well. This question comes from Vegas. He says, question, outside of the Chiefs, which team do you think has the best chance of delivering our next loss? Personally, I think it's the Raiders, present our biggest challenge. I actually love our matchup with the Raiders. If they can't run the football and Derek Carr has to do something by himself, then it's going to be a problem. And their defense is a solid group. It is not scary, I would say. Their secondary, I don't know. I think we're a better team than them. And I don't want to throw that around that much, but I really do like our chances in that game for sure. This next question comes from Mark. He says, is it me or do we have the only team possible even in history? Okay, I got to get closer to see this. He says, is it me or do we have the only team possible even in history, a team you can so winning it all, including the Super Bowl, or even losing the rest of the season, LOL. It's hard to figure this team out, including the needs. I'd say Tua definitely could use some offensive help. I disagree with that. This team is consistently good. I don't think it's hard to figure out. It's got great defense, great game planning every single week. I think an underrated offense, especially with what I saw from this game. I think there's a lot of things that we criticized earlier in the year with the run game and some of that stuff, and some of the sameness from the skill positions that going forward, I think some of the stuff that we saw in this game is really going to help us trending in the right direction to be even better consistently offensively. So I don't think this team is hard to figure out. I think this is a very good team, and especially they can hang their hand on defense for sure if they need to. And this offense has not been bad. I think at the worst you could say about this offense has been an average offense, but I think it's even more than that. I think it can be even more than that for sure. But yeah, if I had to say what, I would definitely draft Fulton, or I keep saying his name's Fulton. That's probably not his name. The LSU receiver that opted out, or Donovan Smith, or maybe Waddle later in the rounds, or later in the first round. This next question comes from Jack Pack 18. He says DP seems to be having a down year compared to last year. Do you think Tua doesn't have chemistry with him yet, or is it a schematic thing? Here's the thing that I'm kind of interested to see how it develops. I think it's kind of both, I would say. Tua, he's great at timing, anticipation, and stuff like that. And like I said, Preston and Devontae aren't necessarily the greatest at that. They're more physical down the field, 50-50 type of dudes. And I think Tua's been doing a good job in that area. But, it would be nice, again, to have someone who's different. And that's what Jakeem Grant provided on Sunday. And hopefully he can continue to do that. It's just a different skill set. And I think we saw that from Jakeem for sure. This next question comes from Beef. He says, hey, Skaggs, what do you think of running back Ahmed playing in this game against the Chargers? As well as your opinion on Jordan Howard being on waivers, most likely getting cut from the Dolphins. We talked about Howard. I like Ahmed. I think he's very good, and I like his speed and his ability to hit the hole fast. I think is the best on the team. This next question comes from Beef. He says, hey, Skaggs, next week do you think we should be concerned with the Broncos or how they can upset us? I think so. I mean, concerned. No, I'm not concerned, but no, I'm not concerned. I'll just leave it at that. This next question comes from The Bridge. At The Bridge. He says, I follow all the Dolphins YouTubers, and yet I'm not that clear on one important thing. Everybody agrees that this defense is playing great, but there is very little consistency about about which particular defenders are playing the best or even playing well. Who would you give the most credit? I think the most underrated player on this defense is Jerome Baker. He does not get enough credit. But who gets the most credit? See, here's the thing, dude. I think Brian Flores probably gets the most credit for what he does schematically every week. And Josh Boyer. There's so much good on the defense that I can't point to one area and say, well, this guy is the reason this is happening. And I think it's a good problem to have. But a player that, again, I think Nick Needham and Jerome Baker kind of get overlooked. Jerome Baker especially gets overlooked. He's so good, and every week NFL teams go, okay, where's the linebacker that week? You can't do, where's the linebacker? Every single week the NFL teams go, where is the linebacker that we can pick on? Jerome, you can't do that with because he's so gifted athletically. I just feel like he kind of doesn't. Jerome doesn't get enough credit. But I really, again, I think you're gonna have the same problem here with me, Bridge. That I really can't point to one person and say he's the biggest reason why the X or Y happens. So I really can't answer that question, really, because there's so much that has to work out well. The sixth question comes from Dancing Cow. He says, what's your thoughts on Ryan Tannehill? I think he may be a contender with Miami in the playoffs, if that could even happen. My thoughts on Tannehill have always been the same. I've always thought he was a good NFL quarterback. I've always stood by that, and I think he's kind of proven me right a little bit. So yeah, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That is it for this week's podcast. I hope you enjoyed. I know I'm enjoying it every single week. These have been the best podcasts that I've done, especially these last 5 games, the most enjoyable ones that I've done, breaking down this team. It's such a joy to break down this team every single week and answer your guys' questions. I'll see you guys in the next one.